All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Red Barn events. Woohoo! My name is Virginia. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the community programs educator here at the Wenatchee River Institute. Tonight we also have volunteer Nicole Ring helping us out. So thanks, Nicole, for being here. And show of hands, is this your first program with Wenatchee River Institute? What? Well, welcome and welcome back. And welcome, we have viewers online as well. And so you might see our microphones but not hear them. That's for them, not for you. So let's see. If you're unfamiliar with Wenatchee River Institute, we are a nonprofit our mission is to connect people, communities, and the natural world. So we have a lot of youth programs. We had educators out in schools today running after-school programs. We had a fall camp here today since Leavenworth is not in school. We send traveling naturalists all over the area. We also have our community programs. So we do workshops, talks like this, both up here and down in Wenatchee. We have our community garden. We'll be starting snowshoe strolls coming up soon here. So lots of fun stuff. And I would like to thank our sponsors for our 2025 Red Barn events. So we have North Central Washington Audubon, Sleeping Lady Mountain Resort, Ludwig's German Restaurant, Leavenworth KOA, the Obertal Inn, Ryan House, South Restaurants, Leavenworth Outdoor Center, Orion River Rafting, Icicle Brewing Company, Munchen House, Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce, and Syndicate Smith. I know, lots of sponsors. and they keep us going for having events like this, being able to bring in awesome folks from all over the place and keep these open to the public. We also rely on our donors, so if you're a donor, thank you so much. If you would like to donate to Wenatchee River Institute, you can do so at either table after the event. And another aspect of WRI is our effort to connect Indigenous people to this landscape, their ancestral lands, and to have all of us learn more about the history of this landscape. So I would like to take a moment to share our land acknowledgement. So this land acknowledgement was created alongside the Washoe people. We are spreading the message they wish to be spread to the public. The land Wenatchee River Institute sits on is the ancestral homelands of the Washoe, Pasquosa, or Wenatchee people. The Washoe, meaning people in between, had villages positioned along the Wenatchee River and surrounding areas. Their ancestral homeland extends from the Cascade Ridge throughout what is now known as the Wenatchee and Okanagan Valleys. The culture and economy of the Washoe people centers on taking care of the land. They fish, hunt, gather roots and berries, basket-making materials, and medicines. The Washoe are named within the Yakima Treaty of 1855. Language to establish the Wenatchee Reservation was never followed through, even with the needed survey completed. Many Washoe now live on the Colville Reservation, 150 miles northeast of Leavenworth. They were forced off their land here, and the US government moved them to this reservation. The Washoe people are still alive today. They continue to practice their culture, harvest their traditional foods and medicines, and hold their ceremonies passed down from their ancestors. Most people won't see or notice them, but they continue to be on the land they are connected to. Their traditional language is in Hamchin, an interior Salish dialect, and we would like to welcome you all tonight by saying hello in their language, Tilhusht. We offer this land acknowledgement as the first step to amplifying Indigenous voices and recognizing the harm done to them as a people. We stand as an ally to recognize their connection to the land and their rights to practice their culture on these sacred lands. We encourage all to learn about the Indigenous peoples of the place you now call home. The Wenatchee River Institute is committed to sharing this land acknowledgement and following up with other actions to educate and be respectful. Thank you. And we are so lucky to partner with many different organizations that are also out here doing similar things with education, connecting people to the landscape, and the natural world, such as Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest. So I would like to introduce our speaker tonight, Diana Goodrich, co-director of the Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest. She's been with the sanctuary since the first group of chimpanzees arrived in 2008, beginning as the sanctuary's director of outreach. She and her husband, JB, took on the role of co-directors in 2013. Diana has an MS degree in psychology from Central Washington University, where she worked with the chimpanzee, is it Washoe? And her family, and an MS in animals and public policy from Tufts University. In her role as co-director, she oversees all fundraising as well as marketing and communications. Diana loves directly caring for the chimpanzees and connecting with individual supporters. So let's welcome Diana Goodrich.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll switch this out for you.
Okay, thank you. Well, while Virginia's doing that, I just want to thank you for being here and for people who are watching at home. I really appreciate the Wenatchee River Institute for inviting me to come here and just for letting me talk about the thing that I love the best, which is the chimpanzees and the work that I do. And also just for providing so many opportunities, like Virginia was saying, for people to connect to the natural world, people of all ages. I know I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if I didn't have those kinds of opportunities when I was younger, so I think it's just so important. And it's something we really need now, more than ever, with all of our technology-focused lives, is to get outside. So I'm gonna start my presentation with it's actually an award-winning video. It was done many years ago, so lots has changed with the sanctuary since it aired, but it was on the local Washington PBS station and also aired on PBS NewsHour, a short clip of it. So it was just really well done, and I think it kind of captures the sanctuary vibe.
Diana and I have been here a couple months prior to the chimps' arrival. Now it's been a little over 8 years that we've been with the chimps.
So they are honorary citizens of Elum and are known throughout the world as the Elum 7. Annie is a really sweet, sweet chimp, and she is best friends with Missy. She just adores Missy. Burrito is super goofy, really charming. Our Facebook followers, mostly the women, are just totally in love with Burrito.
Negra is the oldest of the group, about to turn 43. Foxy is known around the world now for her love of troll dolls. She probably has about 400 dolls.
Jody we call the manager. She's like watching out for everybody. Jamie is the boss of the group.
She also really likes Instagram. What's you? What do you think about that?
This area is what we call Young's Hill. It's an open enclosure, so it was the first time the chimps ever were outside without something over their heads so they could actually see the sky. And some of them, it was the first time they'd actually ever stepped on grass, probably in their entire lives, because many of the chimps were born in captivity.
We never go into the enclosures with the chimps. Aggression is a normal part of chimpanzee life. And so it's just not safe. But also we want to respect their space. Chimps are territorial. And so we want, as much as we can, to respect that boundary and let them be chimps. The 7 chimps that live at the sanctuary spent their entire lives previously in laboratories. Some were captured in the wild in Africa. Others were put into research on day one. They were used in hepatitis vaccine safety trials. They were used as breeders to produce the next generation of lab chimps. Many of them never saw the outside world, never saw the sun in their entire lives, never breathed fresh air. It was a whole world of firsts when they got to the sanctuary. Chimpanzees have recently been uplisted to endangered species status. We're witnessing the end of invasive research on chimpanzees in the United States. They were completely powerless. And you need to give them time to heal at their own pace.
Chimpanzee Sanctuary Northwest is really one of only a handful of sanctuaries in North America that have taken on this mission of rescuing or retiring primates from research and entertainment. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our particular sanctuary and kind of what a day is like and what it takes to fulfill that mission. But I do want to talk about why it's so important and more about chimpanzees in general. So you may have heard this before. We sell shirts that say 98.7% chimpanzee. So we share a lot of genetic ancestry with them, and it's debatable what that exact figure. Some people say 97.7, some people say 98.7, but basically we're very, very close genetically to chimpanzees. In fact, humans and chimpanzees are more closely related to each other than chimpanzees are to gorillas. And chimpanzees are more closely related to humans than African elephants are to Asian elephants. And probably most of you don't really know the difference between an African elephant and an Asian elephant. So that just really illustrates how close we are. Over the last 60 years, they've been studied extensively by this remarkable woman who really brought chimpanzees into everyone's minds and who we lost recently at the age of 91. Dr. Jane Goodall was a pioneering researcher, received her PhD, and really changed the way that we viewed animals in a lot of ways. And she saw a lot of things that no one had seen before. There were also some researchers in the field, mostly Japanese researchers, that were seeing similar things in other field sites. But what was amazing about Jane Goodall is she was able to sort of interpret what was going on to a more popular audience. And with her partnership with National Geographic, it really made the whole world aware of chimpanzees. And her legacy is incredible. So one of the things that she saw was tool use. And this is an image of a chimpanzee in the wild who is fishing termites out of a termite mound. And what they do is they take a piece of grass or a little twig and they'll stick it in the hole and then they'll pull it out real fast so the termites have latched onto the twig, and then they just scrape them off and eat them. And they do that with ants as well. And they have to do it real fast so that they don't get bitten. When Dr. Goodall discovered that chimpanzees were using tools, it used to be that humans were described as man, the tool user. Of course, man, because, you know, it was all about men back then. And Dr. Louis Leakey, who was basically Jane Goodall's boss, mentor, when she presented this information to him, he said, we're either going to have to redefine man, redefine tool, or just consider chimpanzees humans. So it's right now, it's almost silly, right? We think of animals using tools, but at the time, it was a really remarkable discovery. The other thing that was discovered was chimpanzees with tools cracking nuts that are very hard to crack unless you have a rock. And so they use like an anvil and a hammer, basically, and they'll collect just the right materials to use to be able to do this. Human primatologists who study the chimpanzees have tried it, and they're really not that good at it compared to the chimps. And what they discovered is this is actually culturally transmitted. So it's not that chimpanzees innately know how to do this. They're taught how to do this from their mothers and by watching their family members. And so the idea of culture, being able to like pass on information to further generations, was also considered a very human characteristic. And so that was another really important discovery with chimpanzees. More recently, a primatologist, another woman primatologist, Jill Pruitt's, observed juvenile chimpanzees of both genders, so males and females, hunting. So they knew that chimpanzees hunted, and they do hunt other primates, monkeys, and it was always the males that were doing the hunting. But what Jill found was there are chimpanzees who will sharpen sticks into spears with their teeth. They'll take a branch and sharpen it with their teeth, and then kind of poke it into a hollow tree stump where these adorable little primates live that are nocturnal, so they're sleeping in the tree stumps. And if they pull out the spear and blood is on the tip of the spear, they know that they found one of these adorable primates. So we're still learning. This was probably 10 years ago that this was discovered, so we're still learning more and more about chimpanzees and how different they are depending on where they live. We've also learned a lot about chimpanzees who were born in captivity, and as Virginia mentioned, JB and I met in graduate school at Central Washington University, and that is where a very famous chimpanzee named Washoe lived, and she was the first chimpanzee to be taught the signs of American Sign Language. So this is Washoe as a baby, and this was pretty remarkable as well. In the 60s and 70s, they were doing a lot of this kind of language research and trying different methods. And this was the most effective way to teach a chimpanzee because they gesture naturally. It's just something that they do, and they have gestures that mean something to each other. So teaching them the signs of American Sign Language kind of made sense with what they were doing anyway. And they found that Washoe would combine signs for words that she wasn't yet familiar with. One example of that is watermelon. So she didn't know what the sign for watermelon was. And so when she first tasted a watermelon, she combined signs that she knew. So it was like candy, fruit drink was a watermelon. And so again, it was just like showing how remarkably intelligent and creative chimpanzees are. There's a study in Kyoto, Japan, with captive chimps, and they were taught how to choose on a screen numbers in ascending order, and then the numbers would disappear, and they would have to like remember what the numbers were. So I'm going to show a little video of that, and you can see how quickly a chimpanzee named Elum was able to do this task. Did you catch that? Yeah. very casually doing that task. So I think it's still available. There's an app on iPhones. You can buy it for 99 cents, and it's called Ape Test, and you can try it out. You can like set the speed and see if you can catch up to Ayumu's speed. So they're discovering that chimpanzees can do things even that humans can't do, and there's something about how they evolved that required this short-term memory that humans apparently didn't need. And also throughout studying chimpanzees, we also learned just their rich emotional lives. The way that they care for each other, the way that they fight with each other, and also the way that they can mourn. This is just such a moving photo. This is actually a chimpanzee who passed away, and her name's Dorothy. And they wanted to make sure that the other chimps in her group kind of recognized that she was no longer alive. So they brought her body in front of them, and you can see just all of them gathered here. They have acres that they could be roaming, but they wanted to have a funeral procession, basically, for Dorothy. And we at the sanctuary experienced this firsthand. We are lucky that we've only lost one chimpanzee in the 17 years that we've been in existence. But in 2023, a chimp named Jody passed away. She was seen in the video. She was kind of the manager. We called her the den mother of the group. And we knew from our experience at other places and from places like this, I should say this is at Sanaga Young, which is a really amazing sanctuary in Cameroon, that we wanted to give the experience of saying goodbye to the chimpanzees who knew Jody. So we were able to place her body in one of the rooms, and then the other chimps got to greet her and just process, just like what we need to do, what was going on. And we did take some video of it and shared it, and it's pretty remarkable if you're up for watching it. It's just called Saying Goodbye, and you can go to our website. We have a video on our blog. It's also on our YouTube channel. And it's just interesting because the chimps have different ways, just like the humans, of how they react to it. It was overall very, very peaceful in this group. I've seen different reactions from other chimps, but one thing that's pretty remarkable is the chimpanzees. There were a lot of humans that were there too. We invited staff members and former staff members and volunteers to be there as well. And so we were sharing in this grieving process, and the chimpanzees would actually approach us, obviously through caging, we're very safe, and comfort us. It's really amazing. So we honored Jody. We had this statue made of her, and it's below their outdoor enclosure so they can kind of still see Jody. And we knew for a while that we wanted to have a place, memorial space that we can remember and reflect and honor those who have passed at the sanctuary. We also lost a steer a year after, so we're gonna have a place for him as well. So really witnessing in person and like truly grasping the rich emotional lives of the chimpanzees is probably what influenced me the most, and just changed the way that I thought about what our obligation to them was. And for me, I don't think any chimpanzee really belongs in captivity unless there's really no other choice. Like, we are a good sanctuary and we do as much as we can to honor them as species and as individuals, but there's no way we can give them the kind of life that they should have and what they would have if they lived in equatorial Africa where they belong. So chimps' genetic relatedness and their physical similarities to humans, like that genetic commonality that I shared earlier, really led us to use them as stand-ins for invasive biomedical research, beginning with their use in the space program. So chimpanzees were captured in the wild, and when an infant is captured, generally that means 5 to 6 adults are killed because they're protecting that infant from being taken. And then the chimps would be moved to, in this case, with the space program, New Mexico, and then would breed more chimps for the program. And then eventually they were used in biomedical testing for all kinds of different things, all kinds of diseases and vaccine research and stuff. And then this photo you saw in the video earlier. So this is where our first group of chimps lived for around 10 years, and prior to that they were in individual cages. So they at least lived in a group in this facility, but you can see there's no windows, there's no door to the outside. The enrichment they had was a TV that was like just blaring loud when we went in there. It was really a deprived environment for the chimps. And so this use of chimps and this like using them as stand-ins for humans was really kind of in direct conflict with what we were learning about them from Jane Goodall and from observing them in other ways. Sort of as a species, we wanted them to be like us so that we could use them, but we didn't want them to be too much like us because that creates some ethical problems if you start thinking about how we're using them. And so it was this tension, really, that was going on. And gradually, countries started to decide not to use them in invasive research because of this cognitive dissonance, because of this tension. And the US was the last country to make that decision. But finally, in 2013 and 2015, a couple of things happened that basically made it illegal to use chimps in research any longer. So thank goodness for that. It was definitely a long overdue decision. And it also resulted in the need for more sanctuary space. So there are now more chimpanzees living in sanctuaries than in any other type of facility, including zoos in the US, like far more chimps in sanctuaries now. So running a sanctuary is a lot different than what I expected it to be, like anything you go into very naively. I mean, at this point, I've spent a lot of time in front of the computer, just like most modern humans, right? But even in the care of the chimps, it was different than what I thought it might be. It turns out I spend a lot of time trying cowboy boots on because Jamie loves cowboy boots, and she wants the humans to wear her favorite pair, and we have to figure out what her favorite pair is. And she does not care what size shoe we are and what size the cowboy boot is. We just have to do it. And it's definitely not out of a sense of fashion, as you can tell. So Jamie was raised in a human environment and was with a trainer for the first 9 years of her life. We don't really know how she was used, but it's very clear with her behavior that she, like the chimps who were taught sign language, like very enculturated into human culture. And when that happens, they just pick up on these things, and you don't know why. And even chimps who are in laboratories will kind of be attracted to certain things that they see. So we don't know why Jamie likes boots. We just know she does. We indulge her because she enjoys it. And some chimps love dolls. So I think that's the next. Well, this is me walking around the enclosure. So the other thing that Jamie really enjoys is once you have the right pair of boots on, she wants to walk on, obviously on her side of the fencing, and she wants you to walk on the other side. And this has like evolved over the years. So now she wants us to grab the sidekick, the Kubota sidekick, and wear the boots and drive around the enclosure. And she's very insistent. So the chimps at our sanctuary don't know the signs of American Sign Language, but they certainly, especially Jamie, can let us know what she wants and will let us know when we have it wrong. So we just keep trying things until we get it right. So for Jamie, it's walks around the hill, and for Foxy, it's dolls. So it started with troll dolls. She's really into strawberry shortcake dolls now. She had a Dora the Explorer doll phase for a while. There's some Disney dolls that I don't even know what movies they come from. She's super into them too. And it's really interesting with Foxy because she doesn't like any of the other enrichment. Like any of the other toys we give her, we try to like provide a variety of things so that everyone has something that they might find interesting. And she would like push everything else away. She doesn't even nest, unfortunately. But with dolls, it was like immediately the first troll doll she saw. And she's almost never without a doll now. And she does treat them like young, so she'll put them on her back and carry them like chimps do in the wild with their young. But she also knows they're inanimate objects, and she has all kinds of games she plays with them. Like she will put them in danger and then save them, or she will give them to us, and then we like have been babysit them for a while. And just like with Jamie, like it's really a mystery to us why. And we don't really think about it too much because it's like that's who Foxy is. And so we make sure that we have a lot of dolls on hand. And for Negra, the oldest, we celebrated her 52nd birthday this year, but we believe she might be older than that because she's actually one of the last surviving chimpanzees who were captured in Africa. So most of those chimps it was 1976, I believe, when the Endangered Species Act came into effect. So she was captured in 1973, and then after that, it would have been illegal. So it does still happen now, and that's why there are sanctuaries in Africa, in different countries in Africa that are still needed because there's illegal poaching that happens. But Negra was legally taken from her home in Africa and brought to the US. And so we believe she's 52, but she might be a couple years older than that. And her style is this all the time. She just wants to be laying down and have a blanket over her. That's her thing. I am going to leave, I'm actually talking faster than I thought I would, so I'm going to leave some time for questions, but I do want to talk about like where our sanctuary is going, and let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. Right, Sai. I did miss something. So Sai is one of our newer chimpanzees. He came in 2021, and this guy loves celebrity gossip. Jamie also likes books, but she's really into like nature books. She likes this particular series that's about a bonobo, and which is really interesting to me because I feel like she's an anthropologist, like looking at these books. But Sai's tastes are a little less academic. His favorite thing is People magazine or In Touch, is that a magazine? Us Weekly, yeah, just all the gossip magazines. He also really enjoys romantic comedies, and Stanley Tucci is a favorite actor of his. So if anyone has connections to Stanley Tucci, please let me know. So again, I don't know why. And Sai is interesting because he will scan a magazine. Like Jamie will like flip through, and she'll even tear out pages that she really likes. But Sai will, I don't know if he's imitating what he's seen humans do, but he will like read basically. And he's the boss of his group, which is interesting too. And he's such a patient, wonderful, amazing chimpanzee. Sometimes we think he gets frustrated being in that role because it's a lot of management of people, which if any of you are managers, you know how challenging that can be. So sometimes he just wants to take his magazine and go far away and just be by himself and catch up on gossip. So it takes a lot to care for chimpanzees. We have 16 chimps at our sanctuary now. We started with 7. We have a whole program for volunteers. Unfortunately, we had to close it down during COVID because we didn't know if COVID-19 could be transmitted to humans. It can't, which is actually surprising because it can be given to other non-human primates. But we built up our volunteer program again. We also have a relationship with Central Washington University. Even though there are no chimpanzees living on campus anymore, they still have the academic program. So it's the only university in the world that you can get an undergraduate degree in primatology. And they still have a master's program, which is also very unusual. So we really benefit from having the students there. JB teaches a class on campus, and we have a lot of interns, which is fantastic for us because it's like young people who are like super enthusiastic about the field and just learning about primates, and they get to help us clean, which is very helpful. And we also have community volunteers who help as well. We have different levels of volunteers, so people can come as little as once per month to volunteer at the level 1, which is just a lot of doing laundry and preparing food and things like that. We also, the woman who has the gray hair here is our veterinarian. Her name is Dr. Erin Zamzo, and people do not go to veterinary school to get a degree in chimp vet medicine. So she started with equine medicine, and she also had a small animal practice, and she's just brave enough to, and humble enough to learn. So unfortunately, she's been able to learn a lot. We've had a few different things with the chimps. A lot of injuries happen, and we're always monitoring for health issues. Heart issues in particular with chimps, especially male chimps, are pretty common in captivity. So we have this amazing ultrasound machine now, and Erin is so fantastic about just gathering medical professionals. So whenever we have a planned procedure, we have like 6 to 8 different people there who are on hand to do all the things that we want, including anesthesia. And most of the medical professionals are actually human doctors because chimps, again, are so physiologically similar. So this is Jamie, and the photo on the left is the first day that she arrived. The photo on the right is 10 years later. So we, as humans, as primates, are kind of like attracted to the big stories of rescue. And it's so exciting when, you know, you hear about an animal finally getting that second chance and being rescued. And that's often when people kind of pay attention. But it's really the day-to-day that matters. Jamie on day 1, you know, that was the first day of several decades that she's going to be at the sanctuary, hopefully. And we're still seeing her change and grow. And we used to say that they're kind of aging in reverse. I think we've reached the point now where they're actually aging. But it's been amazing to be able to be there in person and to see just daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and now decades later that the chimpanzees are still changing and growing and gaining confidence even now. So our latest chimpanzee is named George, and he came from a roadside zoo in Oregon this year. So on May 15th, the authorities in Oregon seized George from this roadside zoo, and he was the first animal to be removed from this facility. It's called West Coast Game Park Safari. And then 369 other animals were removed after that, and the owner of the zoo has numerous charges against him. And George was the last remaining singly housed chimpanzee in a situation like this. So luckily there aren't that many, but there are still situations where there are chimpanzees living in really impoverished conditions. He started his life in entertainment. He was used in a German TV show as kind of the main character. And this show lasted for about 16 seasons. So they just continually kept replacing the chimp because they kept the chimp at the same age for all those years. So there were about 13 chimps overall that were used, and he was used for about a year and a half in that TV show. And then when he was 7 years old, at that point, chimps are normally like just too strong, too willful to really control anymore. And so he was just dumped at this roadside zoo. And he lived there with an older female for many years. And then she passed away in 2023, and then he was all by himself. So we are just now in the process of socializing him, and hopefully we'll be able to get him into a group over the winter. He's now met all of the members of the group that we hope to put him in, and he's doing amazingly well. Chimpanzees are so remarkably resilient for the most part, and he's just a really special guy. So I encourage you to follow his story. We have a daily blog that we post to, so photos and videos and stories. So follow George. He's very charming. He might be replacing Burrito in terms of popularity, but don't tell Burrito that. And he's been going outside a lot too, which is really cool to see him run because he's younger. Our population is pretty old at this point, and he's only 21, so he's like young, spry guy. And the original group can see him when he's outside, and they get very excited. So a lot has changed at the sanctuary over the years. When that video was first produced, we had not yet started adding on land. So originally the sanctuary land was 26 acres, and now we are the stewards of about 113 acres in total. And we've expanded the chimp facilities as well. The land that we're stewarding right now was originally the ancestral land of the Kittitas band of the Yakima tribe, and so that was their land. And of course, it's also the land of wild animals as well that are still there. We have lots of elk occasionally, we have a lot of deer, and a ton of marmots, which are very fun. And we also have some non-native species other than chimpanzees. So we take care of a few rescued cows, and we convinced our board, I don't know if any of our board members are watching, that we needed cows because we had all this extra pasture land, and for firewising purposes, we needed it to be grazed down. When in reality, JB and I just really like cows, so it's nice to have them. And they have a really interesting story, which I won't go into right now, but they are rescued cows. They were used in entertainment as well, actually. So we've also expanded our chimpanzee population, as I've mentioned. So this is Rain, and she's on one of the newer structures in her habitat. So in 2019, we were able to bring in 3 chimps, and then in 2021, we brought in 6 chimps, and then George came in last year. So total of 16 total now. And they are all so different and so remarkable and so amazing. And there's something that will like draw you to one of the chimps, I guarantee. If you start following our blog, there'll be somebody who's like, oh, I like that one. So it's pretty unlikely that we're gonna continue rescuing chimpanzees because fortunately there aren't that many chimpanzees in need of rescue anymore. There are still some, but the sanctuary population and sanctuaries in general have grown. So we hope that the chimpanzees who are in need can be taken care of by other sanctuaries. So it doesn't make sense for us to build, multi-million-dollar facility for more chimps if other sanctuaries can care for them. But the situation for other primates is really very different. So there are tens of thousands of monkeys that are being used in research in the US alone every year. And they also don't have protections for their private ownership or being used in entertainment. So one of the things that you can do is supporting the Captive Primate Safety Act, and that would basically end the use of owning primates. So any kind of monkey, it would be illegal to own. And that would be, we don't really know how many monkeys are in private homes, and the laws vary state to state. So like in Washington, it's illegal to own a monkey. In Missouri, certainly it's not. It's okay. So it's a really important thing that's happening now. Of course, wait until the government opens before you contact your legislators. But this is on our website under resources if you wanna sign up for that. And we plan to expand for monkeys in the future. So that's kind of the direction that we're gonna go in because there's such a huge need. We're part of the North American Primate Sanctuary Alliance, so we work with other sanctuaries that have similar missions to us. And there's monkeys out there who need sanctuary placement, and there's just nowhere for them to go often. So that's what we're gonna do in the future. And I would say also, other things that you can do is just, I mean, you know this because you live in Leavenworth, but just get outside and connect with the natural world. Everyone at home, go outside. And also follow us. So we are on Instagram and Facebook, and then, like I said, we have a blog that we post to every day. So definitely check that out. So I will open it up to questions now. Thank you. Yes.
So you have to keep your original 6 and in different pods. Do they commingle at all? I mean, do you commingle them?
Yeah, so the question is if we commingle the groups of chimps. So no. Chimps are really territorial, and so it's quite a process to introduce them. Sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it just doesn't work out. So when we took in the 3 chimps in 2019, we did attempt to introduce them to the original group. That was our intent all along, and it just did not work. They were just, like humans. It's like sometimes you gel with people and sometimes you don't. Unfortunately, with chimps, if you don't gel, then that often means it's a real physical fighting. So it just didn't. It wasn't going to happen with them. Our chimp population in the original group, Negra is 52. Many chimps are entering their 50s, so we expect to have losses in the future, and so we will reevaluate as things happen. Also, we were able to rescue 6 more chimps in 2021, and we did put the 3 from 2019 with them, and they lived together for 2 years, and there wasn't like violent fighting, but it was just like daily tension. And so we have separated them too. So we have several different groups that are happening right now. But so our staff is really fantastic and really caring, and we're just trying to maximize the welfare for everybody and trying to figure out what social groups might work in the future. But our focus right now is on George since he's alone. We want to make sure that he has companionship. And he's very eager to be with other chimps, so that's what we're focusing on right now.
Would he get to choose the group, or would a group choose him?
Yeah, so George, would he get to choose a group, or would the group choose him? It's one of those things, like we really feel like choice is the most important thing that we can provide for chimps. As far as social grouping, it's a lot of the humans that are deciding what happens. So we are choosing for him the most stable group because we feel like he really needs good examples of how to be a chimp. And so we're hoping with Sai and his group that will be a good group for George to learn from, and then we'll see what happens down the road.
You separate the males and females?
We do not separate the males and the females, no. Our original group is unusual because it was 6 females and 1 male. Usually you want a couple of males. You want somewhat equal distribution of males and females, but in captivity, it's all messed up, So it really depends on what their histories are and who gets along. But usually it's better to have multiple males, multiple females in a single group.
How much acreage do each of the groups have? How much terrain do they have?
Right, so each group has 2 or 2.5 acre outdoor enclosure. And then we also have to have a large indoor space as well because we get snow, and chimpanzees are from equatorial Africa, which it does not snow there. So we really make sure that they have really nice indoor spaces as well. And so we have fully indoor spaces, and then we have kind of indoor-outdoor spaces that we call greenhouses, and they have greenhouse panels on them that we take off in the summer and are just going back on now. And then we try to heat those up. The newer building, it's south-facing, so it like truly works as a really nice greenhouse and warms up with the sun. And that's their favorite space. The outside's still, like the big outdoor enclosures, they treat like recess. So they'll kind of like go outside and frolic for a while and then come back inside into the indoor spaces. But I think George is going to be a little bit different because he really likes to kind of hang out outside. So maybe he'll encourage some of the others to do the same.
Am I remembering that Burrito had congestive heart failure?
Yeah, the question is if Burrito had congestive heart failure. Yes, he does. And we also have Willie B, Cy, and now Missy that have heart disease. And we have a cardiologist come from WSU that does their exams, and so we're monitoring that. There's also something called the Great Ape Heart Project, which is across zoos and sanctuaries, so we can submit our ultrasounds to them, our echocardiograms, because they're tracking this and trying to get a feel for what's going on with apes in captivity. Gorillas also, cardiac issues are really common.
How old do they live to be in the wild and in captivity typically? Like, are you extending their lives longer than they would be in the wild?
Yeah, so the question is, how old do they live to be in captivity and in the wild? So there was a study done probably 10 years ago now of zoos in North America, really good study. And it found that the median life expectancy was mid-30s, with females living a little bit longer than males, just like with humans. And that was without infant mortality. And it's similar in the wild, a little bit longer in captivity. But with the wild, infant mortality is a lot higher, and so that skews the age. But chimpanzees can live into their 60s and 70s, and there's, I think the oldest living chimpanzee that we really have good records for was 70, well, I'm gonna get it wrong. I think it was 74, I could be wrong. Yeah.
Did you see a lot of, with the chimps that you had, a lot of correlation to health conditions from being tested on? Like a lot of them, like the heart disease, is that like, is a lot of it correlated to what they experience to why they're in the sanctuary?
Yeah, so are there health issues from being tested on? The group of chimps that we have, the original group, they were used in hepatitis vaccine testing. So they were never given any infectious diseases that we're aware of. We have very limited records from them. So some of the stuff was pulled because it was proprietary. So we don't really know everything. But we know that they weren't given hepatitis, but the vaccines were tested in their bodies. And that was a lot of liver biopsies so that they could see how the liver was metabolizing the vaccines. So that's something that we worry about is results from multiple liver biopsies, because some of them were punch biopsies and some of them were like wedge, where they actually like surgically removed pieces of liver. And the punch biopsies do seem to possibly carry risks of infection. We haven't seen anything yet with our group. So nothing that we're seeing, we would be able to say that it correlates with what they went through. Yeah.
I have a two-part question.
Sure.
And I feel like I should say I'm a Negra fan, and I also really like Foxy, and I can appreciate a girl who likes boots, so Jody has a special place for me. But my question, I guess, is a big picture and a conservation focus, where we have all these sanctuaries. They have huge demand since the 2013, 2015 time. And now with them being more critically endangered in habitats in equatorial Africa, is there talk of breeding or genetic preservation or mingling of groups for conservation, or how do you tackle that, think about that from a sanctuary perspective?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So it's about conservation and the dwindling number of chimpanzees in their native habitat, and how sanctuaries play a role in that. So for U.S. sanctuaries or sanctuaries that are outside of Africa, No. So for several reasons. One is part of the reason that there's so few chimpanzees in the wild now is because of habitat loss. So there's just like no place to put chimpanzees, even if there were chimpanzees to be rehabilitated. And then the other part is because chimps are so much of what they know and how they exist is cultural. They really can't survive if you take a chimp who's grown up in a human environment, even in a laboratory, and put them in the wild. There's one case, if you want to look it up, her name is Lucy, and they did try that, yeah. Very sad. But so sanctuaries in Africa are definitely talking about it, especially those that are in countries where there are wild populations of chimps. But even with them, even chimpanzees who maybe lived in the wild for a few years and then were captured, just don't have the skills to really survive in the wild. And then there's just the problem of the habitat loss. And it's like dwindling more and more. Yeah.
So are they all fixed and they're not able to reproduce, or it just doesn't happen?
So the chimpanzees at our sanctuary are not capable of reproducing. So the males have been vasectomized, and we also give the females birth control for health reasons and as a backup measure.
Sorry, you may have said this, but why Elum?
Right,
Yes,
the whole title of the talk. Why Elum? So the founder of the sanctuary, Keith LaChapelle, he was in Seattle, and he worked for a biotech company, not doing research on animals, but in project management. So he's helping construction and things like that, but knew that the company he worked for did research on animals. And his company was bought out by another company. He got a big severance package, and he was kind of like at that point in his life where he was thinking like, what's my personal legacy gonna be? And he had a sister who was a keeper at the Dallas Zoo, and he read a magazine article in Discover magazine about this need for sanctuaries and chimps that were being used in invasive testing. And then he went to Central Washington University, and it happened to be when a chimpanzee there, Moja, had passed away, and so he got to like experience all these people grieving for a chimpanzee, and so like all these things combined sort of cemented in that he wanted to start a sanctuary. And so it's kind of just convenience. He thought, he was like looking around Washington State and thought, well, Elum seems like a good place. And back then, the land was a lot cheaper. So obviously, the climate's very different than what they would experience. A lot of the bigger sanctuaries are in southern states in the US, and so they don't have to emphasize indoor space as much. But a lot of chimps who have grown up institutionalized, like they really, like I was saying with the outdoor space, like they don't know that, sometimes we feel like parents, we're like, get outside, it's nice, but they really feel comfortable indoors, and so I kind of wish that was emphasized no matter where they lived.
Did Jane Goodall visit you ever?
Jane Goodall has never visited the sanctuary. We had invited her many times, but usually when she would be in Seattle, and she'd be like there to give a talk and then would fly out hours later. But she did do a video for us, I think it was 2021, that was really lovely. It was when we were taking in the group of 6, and yeah, so she was supportive, but she never visited in person.
Do you find that within these groups, they develop their own little culture at all?
Yeah, so the different groups at the sanctuary, do they develop their own culture? Yes, yeah, they do. I'm trying to think, there was an example recently. I know what I was thinking of. There's this excited hop that some of the chimps do. We throw a lot of parties for the chimps because chimps are really into food, and so if you like make a big presentation of it, and like especially you have things like whole coconuts or things, so like any opportunity, like birthdays, holidays, we do parties, and we started noticing that some of the chimps do this, what we call the bunny hop. And it started with Gordo. So he does a little bunny hop. And then all of a sudden it was like, Terry does a bunny hop. And now Willie B's doing a bunny hops. And now they're doing it for George. And so I'm waiting for the day until George does a bunny hop. So yeah, I think they do develop their own cultures and teach each other things. And like that communication. It's been super interesting with George just watching him. He's, for whatever reason, he's really pretty socially savvy. And so he is picking up things from them and kind of like understanding how they're different individually too.
And he is part of their group?
He's going to be. So we've started the introduction process. We're doing it very slow. So he's met everyone one-on-one, and then in a couple weeks we'll start with multiple chimps with him at a time. Right, yeah, our plan, our plan is to have him live with Sai first and develop a really good relationship. We really want George to understand that Sai's the boss. Sai's, like I was saying, very patient, but it would be nice if Sai kind of enforced that a little bit to make sure that George is not going to get in trouble with some of the other members of his group. So that's our hope at this point.
Sorry, I have another question. I apologize. So none of your staff none of you have like, other than like between like the cages, you've never like gone inside or anything?
We do not go inside the cages with the chimps unless they're anesthetized. So chimps are very strong and they will set you up. In fact, Jane Goodall was missing a piece of one of her fingers from a chimp in a lab. And like she knew chimp behavior more than anyone, and she didn't know that this chimp was gonna bite her finger. And it just can happen really fast like that. And they're just rough with each other, you know, even if they're not acting in a aggressive way, they're just strong and rough. And they have each other for their, you know, their physical needs. Chimps have no personal space whatsoever. And so, yeah, we're really careful. We want to keep all of our fingers. It's not like our official mission statement, but I think it's a big part of it. So we do the kind of careful interactions that you saw in the video.
What's their main diet that you have to supply?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't talked about food much at all. So the question is, what's their main diet? We do primarily fresh whole produce, and we also supplement it with primate chow, which is a commercially made product, kind of like dog kibble. So it's nutritionally complete, but it's not like the greatest nutrition in the world. It's very processed. So we were planning on weaning them off of it, but it's what they were used to from coming from the laboratories. So it's kind of a supplement for them still. And then for food puzzles, we do a lot of peanut butter, which is really popular. And we try to focus on no added sugar, no added salt for health reasons. So yeah, we get a lot of produce delivered, lots of fruits and vegetables.
Do you have a garden at the sanctuary?
We sometimes have a garden. I was talking to Virginia about it earlier. Yeah, sometimes we have volunteers who are really into gardening, which is really what we need because like this year, I'm so late with everything. I think I planted it. I'm like, if it's before July 4th, I'm lucky. And so we have like all these sad tomato plants that produced one tomato this year and now they're gone. So yeah, we do have garden beds. And sometimes we have really nice gardens, but not every year. It does take a lot of food to feed the chimps, so it's actually more just fun. But the chimps know, we do have like a black currant bush, so it's perennial. And Jamie in particular, like she knows the time when they're gonna be ripe, and she will like gesture and make sure that we pick them. And the same with raspberries.
Do you have a chimp that is especially attached to you?
So the chimpanzees do, just like with humans, like they'll kind of bond with different humans. I don't know. I consider Jamie one of my good friends, and I, like, personally, I really love the chimps that are a little harder to, like, some of the chimps are easy, you know, like Burrito. He would play with anyone. He's just, like, a good-hearted guy. Gordo's super aloof, and so, like, he was somebody that I really wanted to win over. And Jamie can be a challenge, too, so really, yeah. And Negra was kind of the first chimp that I felt really connected to and really wanted to help because she was the oldest when we met her in the lab, and she was obviously depressed. She didn't really get up when we were there, even though there were strangers like right there in her territory. And so we were just hoping like, maybe she'll live 6 months, maybe she'll live a year at the sanctuary, and now it's like 17 years later.
All right. Well, I think, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I don't want to cut it off. If people still have questions, please feel free. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. I had no idea about all this. And I'm like, I have a zillion questions. And I guess one question I'll ask is, any recommended reading?
Yeah, I was talking to some people here about the book Next of Kin. So that was written by Roger Fouts, who took care of Washoe. And it's about his evolution of how he felt about that project and about whether it was okay to kind of bring a chimp into human culture. And also fun stories about Washoe, because she was a really strong-willed chimp even as a youngster. There's a book called New Chimpanzee, which came out probably 6 years ago or so, but it kind of goes over the latest research in chimps and like what we know about them now.
Cool.
Yeah, that one is really fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, audience. Feel free to stick around a little bit and chat and whatnot. And if you had RSVP'd, we'll send out the link. You can always watch this later. Send it to your friends and check out their website. That's some cool. I was poking around on it back there too. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna be addicted to this blog by next week. I know it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.